Is it just you and me today?
No, we got
Yeah.
our
What's
boy.
up, man?
Feel like it's been a while, man. Haven't talked to you guys since last Thursday.
Well, yeah, I didn't even get to come on last Thursday. My wife
Yeah.
went into her like a routine thing, and she had to do like an emergency surgery, and so it was like I had to stop. She's fine, but it was just she had to take a few days off of work, so it's been a little crazy the last couple of days here.
When is the baby due?
End of December. If it's
Oh,
on the
wow.
actual due date,
Christmas.
no, December 31st.
Jesus. Little Jesus coming out. I mean, Jesus.
Well, no, neither. Neither.
Damn, December 30th. So New Year's Eve, you can't party. You got to be ready in case something
Technically, yeah. I mean, our first kid came on the exact due date. I mean, they plan it, and they're like, if it's not, the kid's not here by this day, we're gonna either induce labor or do a C-section. So if history is correct, then yeah, December 31st, New Year's Eve. They're like, oh, you could either have the last child born in 2023 or the first one born in 2024. I'd rather the last child in 2023. You know, any parent knows it's good for school. Have them
Yeah.
with a birth date of this year so they don't start school a year later. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Heinzie Ketchup.
Okay. What'd you guys do over the weekend? Anything exciting?
Trying to do over the weekend.
I already forgot everything. It's all been erased.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a long weekend for everybody.
It did because the weekend for us technically starts Thursday, so it's always a 3-day weekend. I don't know. I just did spent some time with the family, cooked, and saw UFC on Saturday. I don't know if anybody here watched that UFC on Saturday. That was pretty damn good this weekend.
Live or just at home?
Yeah. Again, if you have an ESPN Plus account, you get access to all of the weekly UFCs, and then you get a discount on the pay-per-views. So it wasn't a pay-per-view this weekend, but it was great. Valentina Shevchenko went to get her 125-pound belt back, and it was ruled a no contest. That was a great fight. The Mexican fighters have really been doing well lately, and I was surprised. She did not look that good in the fight. There were some really good fights. So if you guys, anybody in the chat watch UFC? Any UFC fight fans?
Yeah, I've never got into UFC,
Thank
but
you
I
so
know
much.
it's a huge market. I mean, it's
so good.
I like women's mud wrestling. That's my favorite.
On Brazzers.
Brazers.
It's not,
I watch a lot of naked news.
hate to break it to you, but they're not really mud wrestling.
What did you do over the weekend, Vitaly?
It was family stuff. A lot of baseball games and things like that. That's all I remember, actually. I don't know what else happened.
I guess we'll start with David's super chat to lighten it up before we get into the hard finance. David, again, I don't know where you get this money, but thank you, man. If you were going to have a celebrity guest, but your only two choices are Dylan McDermott or Dermot Mulroney, and it is possible those two guys are the
I think
same
we had this
person.
question from you before.
Yeah, he asked if they were the same
very
person.
familiar.
He asked if they were the same person.
I think you did this already, but I'm happy to take your $14 Canadian.
Yeah, there it is. I think it's possible that they're actually the same person. No, we brought up pictures. They absolutely do look like the
They're
same.
Similar,
person.
but they're different actors. We talked about
But
this.
if you look at a picture of them, they look really similar. Like
I think David is a robot, and he has a list of questions he randomly picks.
tied to a bank account.
He's a bot.
Apparently.
What's up, guys?
Chris, you join right when we get a super chat, of course.
Nice.
From David.
He
He's just
smelled
bringing
money. He came running.
He smelled the money.
He's like, I'm getting in that $4.
Sam Solid. Shout out to TJ the DJ. TJ the Wheel Deal. Thank you for the super chat. Chris, what did you do over the weekend? Wait, when did you get back from Mexico?
I got back on Friday afternoon.
Give us the 5-minute rundown. How'd your first pineapple experience go?
Nah, there was no pineapple experience. I'll tell you right now, I'm actually looking at investing in some cruise stocks. Not Royal
You got
Caribbean.
a bull case on cruise stocks from
I do have a bull case on cruise stock. No, I'll be honest. Like right now, the numbers are trending in the right direction for the cruise companies. Let me just show the data real quick to you guys. But
He had it ready to go. He had it ready.
This is why I love Chris.
Sorry,
Bro.
I'll try.
Didi ready. This is why people, bro, on this podcast, you get like highly fresh data from someone who's so curious about the world.
Yeah,
this is great.
Hold on one second.
Well, we should actually guess what the. I mean, there's a lot of other news besides cruises. I mean,
let's do this cruise thing for like 10 minutes.
That's
and
serious
we'll
too.
move on.
And what does Elon charing for Twitter mean in the title?
Oh, that you didn't hear? All right, I'll break the news to you in a
What
little
does
bit. Go ahead, Chris.
charring mean?
Oh, chairing, not charging. My bad.
So one of the things about Carnival Cruise Lines, Norwegian, and Royal Caribbean is that all of them have pretty much been battered to death by COVID, but they're starting to recover. So if you look at the revenues here for Carnival Cruise Lines, they're actually recovering pretty materially from where they were right before COVID happened. So the last time that their all-time highs in terms of revenue was around February of 2020, right before COVID, and they were generated about 20.9 billion dollars in revenue. And you can see here in the last quarter, the last quarter that just went by on a TTM basis, they're already back to about 17.5 billion, right? They're making some transitional changes. They're adding a few more ships. One of the things that Carnival Cruise Lines has been kind of like screwed over with a little bit is that, well, not screwed over, but they've been spending money on refreshing their ships. And actually, you can see here their capex has been kind of crazy. Even during COVID, they kept up with adding new ships. But what's also interesting is now they're getting to a point where, in terms of operating income, they're almost back to profitability in operating income. So if you look at this on a quarterly basis, last quarter they were like literally inches away from becoming cash. What is that thing called? Operating income positive. So usually in May is their second to last highest grossing month. Right now, the next month coming is August. The August month is going to be reported in about two quarters. We're going to see, hold on. What is this, May? So you can see here in May, it was only actually they generated an operating cash flow in May of about 100 million, which is not bad. But overall, they're trending in the right direction. Now, what's interesting is their stock price has not kept up with that trend. So hold on, let me just put it up.
It's down from like
right
$70,
here,
right?
Yeah. So if you look at where they were trading prior to COVID lows, they were trading around the 70s, around $60 to $70, and right now they're at $15. So what's going to happen in the next couple of years as more people cruise, you're going to see this improvement in revenue, but they're planning on not adding a lot more ships into the future. And they're doing some other things operationally to become a little bit more operationally positive. And so as they pay down that debt that they've accumulated over the point of COVID, that's just going to mean that it's going to be higher returns for shareholders, right? Royal Caribbean, which is one of the other, let me just share that screen real quick. One of the other,
The other major cruise lines.
Yeah, Royal Caribbean is like probably the best run cruise line among their peers. They did not do as capital heavy of expansion, but you can see here, because of their operating cash flows, they're pretty much back to where they were prior to COVID. So right here is when they took their hit. So they were about $120. Right now, they almost got to $108 in July. So they're pretty much back. And the only reason why they're back is because unlike Carnival, Royal Caribbean has been able to generate cash flows. And so now the chances of bankruptcy and everything else is kind of gone. So if you look at here in terms of operating income, they're back. Like operating income wise, they actually generated a $1.4 billion profit. So this is the key. $1.4 billion in operating income, not profit. Let me take that step back. Net income, they're still probably negative right now. So yeah, net income, they're only negative by 54 million. So I think what it is I hope people understand what the difference between operating income is versus net income. Net income is, with depreciation and everything else. So this right here gives them the ability now to pay down a lot of debt, and which I think they're doing right now. But you can see here that now that stock is already recovered back to its pre-pandemic lows, bookings are amazing right now. They're like, I was on a cruise ship this 2 weeks ago. Well, no, not 2 weeks. So last week, And let me tell you, the amount of people that are back cruising again is just out of this world. On top of it, old people love cruising. And so right now you're seeing an entire generation of baby boomers that are flush with cash from both retirement money and also from their property values being so high. So when they sell, what do you think they do with it? Most of them are actually doing like escapes. Like they're doing things like
Or
a
RVs.
28 or RVs, like 28-day cruises around
How
the
much? How much
Mediterranean.
did you spend over the past week? How many G's?
I would say initially the tickets and everything cost about $1,000 something, but then when we were on the cruise, we spent on. So that's how the cruise lines actually make their money. They get you with a low introductory price where they're like, oh, it's only going to be $1,000 for 4 days, all you could eat buffet, blah blah blah, all that good stuff, you know. But then when you look at it, the internet that I had, that cost me $150, right? It probably cost them maybe like $10, $15 for the Starlink services, but they charged me $150. Now imagine there's 5,000 fucking guests on that ship. I'm sure most of the people ended up getting some form of the internet, right? So that is huge profit for them. Then you have the drink packages. Like if you want to drink anything outside of just water and coffee, you have to get like a soda package. Otherwise, they charge you for every soda and drinks like alcohol. So most people end up buying a soda package and a drink package, which is huge margins for them. Then every time you go on an excursion, they charge you for the excursion. They had an escape room on the ship, which me and my wife loved. So we did an escape room. That cost us like $35 per person. All in all, we probably, and then there's the casino on board. And me and the wife, we played some craps. We won and then we were down. But that was so all in all,
the shows
were, yeah.
And then
the shows we didn't have to pay for. The shows were included. So at least
did you have to pay when you would land at a specific spot? They would do like a tour of whatever city you were at. They were like, oh, you can pay. You get on a bus and you go on like a day trip.
Yeah, and an excursion. Me and the wife we just chose not to do that. We could have gone on an excursion to like the Bahamas, like to I think Grand Bahama. And then they have their own private island where literally if you want to have like your own experience, they charge for all those things. So all it is you get nickel and dime throughout the entire process, but it's profitable and old people love it to death. Like I'm telling you, when I was there, everyone was giddy, everyone was happy. It was great. So yeah. Someone said, look at Norwegian. Yes, I agree. I've been on a Norwegian cruise before. Norwegian is also a great cruise play right now. Both CCL and Norwegian are very undervalued for where they're actually headed in the next couple of years. And
I was looking
the other
for the
thing,
data, but you can see how far out they're actually booked. So you already know, like they have
a
year or two in cash flow already set.
The other cool thing about them is that even with the debt, what they can do is do advanced bookings way into the future, and using that advanced booking income, because now all of that shit is stored. Like Carnival right now has $8 billion of tickets that are already sold into the future, right? And it's just sitting on their balance sheet that now they can leverage to make more money with, you know? So these are the kinds of things that are like happening in the cruise industry, and it's finally starting to turn the corner. So there was a point where a lot of people were going into these cruise lines as meme stocks, but they're not actually meme stocks. They're profitable businesses that can generate huge amounts of cash flow. I'm going to talk about something that's kind of sad, but at the same time, it's worth noting. Most of the people that are on board, they come from like the Philippines, from India, from, you know, like different Eastern Europe, and they are contract workers. They don't have any benefits. They pretty much are low paid workers that work the ship. Most of them work heavily on tips. And why is that good for you as an investor, but bad for you as a human? In terms of unionization, there's no unionization on these cruise ships. So there's no extra
cruises
cost.
are formed in different locations, like the islands,
Yes.
Ireland,
Yes.
and all that stuff.
So even
they're
in
not
terms
in the United
of taxes,
States. They're not companies in the United States.
So even in terms of taxes, because they're not registered in the United States as a headquarters, they don't pay U.S. taxes. And that, again, once again, from a profit perspective, is good for us. So
a friend of mine dated one of the chicks who was a dancer at one of the shows. And when you actually divide out whatever the hourly rate that they pay these people, considering the fact that they are gone for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or 3 months at a time, it's actually a very, very low rate, because they basically have bought you for all that time, and there is no free time. You're basically on the ship the whole time. They live a rough life, the people that work on those ships, and it's very hard. Like, my buddy had a really hard time having a relationship with this woman because he wouldn't see her for months at a time, or he'd have to fly out to wherever she was to hang out with her for a few days if she got like a couple of days off, and then she'd have to be back on the ship. It's an all-consuming sort of lifestyle, and I'm imagining that there's a lot of churn in that. I can't imagine that people stay in that for long. It's kind of like advertising. 18 months and people, I think, are just burnt out and just done.
No. I believe it. We spoke to a few people who basically they do like 7-month contracts.
Mhm.
They love it. Some of them are like, hey, this provides for my family. This is like, to them, remember, they're getting a place to live. They're getting a place where they don't have to worry about food because everything is already there. They don't have to worry about like a lot of things. And so when it comes to like providing for their families back at home, this is like the life for them, you know. And what do they do?
7 months out of the year, and then the rest of the year, the rest.
And
of
then the rest of the time they're spending with their family. Yeah,
like a
And
trucker, right? A trucker, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, or something like that.
Yeah. So it
I
just
think they killed
depends
their
on
dividends.
people's
They killed their
perspective.
dividend in 2020, I believe, some of them. And are
They
they bringing
had
that
to.
back?
They had to. I mean, eventually
coming
they
back?
will. Not anytime soon. They all loaded up on a shit ton of debt to get them through the day. Unlike the airlines, unlike the other industries that got government bailouts, these guys didn't get bailouts, you know. So they had to like survive off of their own volitions, and most of them did it by issuing a lot of debt. So, you know, it's just one of those things. But what's good is that depending on which cruise line you're looking at, they structured their debt in a way that it's not really that bad for them, where they actually did their maturity so that they don't have any maturity walls. Whenever it comes to debt, just remember, maturity walls are your enemy, but over time, debt is actually a good thing, right? If you issue debt that's like 2020 or like, let's say 2035, and you're only issued it at 2%, 3%, and people were willing to pay that, dude, you don't have to pay down that debt anytime soon. You can just let that shit ride, you know, and that's what they do. So,
Interesting. I think our second episode ever of Freelancer Finance, or first, was a buddy of mine who was buying heavily call options on Carnival and Royal Caribbean during the pandemic. I was curious to see, because those call options should have expired or should be expiring.
Well, he probably sold them by now.
I don't
Now,
know. I never followed up.
This is the part that's going to shock you, that I don't want to give it away because I feel like there's certain things I want to keep from my Patreon people, but their calls are fucking dirt cheap for 2026. I don't know why. I can't tell.
For the cruises? The cruise
Yes.
stock?
Bring it up. Let's see.
Do you have your thing pulled up? Because if I pull up my thing,
I'm just gonna Robinhood real quick and just look at the
So look at 2026.
CCL
call option CCL, like let's say a $20 strike, which is 2 years away from now.
Buy a call. It's $360.
It's $3 fucking dollars. That's nuts if you think about it.
For $20, it's at 15 right now, right?
You can't bring it up. Just show it, man. No, I meant on for everybody.
Yeah.
Let me bring it up on Robinhood here.
It's like everybody. Look at my phone.
Now this is not KRIS saying go and buy CCL stock, by the way, or buy.
It's too late. I've done it. I've done it while
late,
you were
bro.
talking.
I'm here. I'm done. I'm in Carnival. Okay, so let's do this here.
Yeah, you told us to buy Norwegian, not CCL.
So buy call 2026, 851 days away, $20 strike. Companies at $15. KRIS, so why is 360 cheap? Can you explain the logic for why it's cheap?
Because if you look at the book value of how many ships they have, they got a shit ton of ships. They're paying down debt really fast, which means that all that stuff is going to go into their equity, right? So as you pay down debt, that means that when you have right now, you have these ships that are all mortgaged up, right? Basically, you got loans based on the asset, which is the ships. So as the ships generate cash flow, you pay down the debt, which means you're freeing up that asset for more debt or for just profitability. So if you go and you look at something like this for 2 years into the future, you can already see the profitability reaching a point where it's happening. You're going to see huge amounts of capital appreciation coming into the future, right? So I would say 2 years of time premium, which 800 days away, it's fucking nuts. And you're only paying $3 for it. So, you know.
Can you bring up Adam IC's?
That's if it moons that quickly. If
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
Hey,
3 weeks,
listen.
Chris, to make the money, and then you got to be out.
Hey, look, if it
Hey,
goes
listen.
to 20 soon.
Yep.
That's actually expensive, by the way. $3, and it's a $15 stock. That's not cheap.
Oh,
yeah,
for a
no,
$20 strike,
it's-
2 years, you're getting
it's a
2 years
fifth
of
of the
I'm
price.
just
Right.
saying that is not cheap as like if it was 20 cents. You know what I mean? Like when those people were going YOLO bets into GameStop, they were paying like pennies, you know? So they were paying pennies for a company that was going bankrupt. So that was
Yeah,
the
but-
opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah, but that,
But
how
Vitaly,
can
you're talking about a stock pre-COVID that was trading between $50 and $60. So even if, let's say, it goes to $40, right? It goes back to trading at what it was prior to COVID, which their revenues are almost back to prior COVID levels, right? Now they just have to do the margin improvements to get the same margin that they were getting during pre-COVID. The valuation could spike up to $45. If you have
It
a
might, but
$3, yeah.
Here's a question though. So look, I don't
Hmm.
know enough about cruises. I like cruises. Okay, I do know that part. But they have to keep up with the ships. There's always a new ship coming out that people are always on these cruises who go to cruises a lot. They want the new ship, the new stuff. So my question is, how many years do they amortize these ships? Because I think in 5 years, these ships are
20
old and they have to get
years,
a new
20 years. No, 20
You're telling me
plus
that's
years.
some 20-year-old cruise
Yes.
ship going. They've got to
The
renovate
average-
these ships.
It's going to
the average-
Titanic on you next
The
time.
average age,
I don't know if
the
they're 20
average
years.
age of most of their fleet is usually 12 years. No, these things 20 years.
Carnival,
Wow.
you're talking about?
Not just Carnival, all of them.
I'll take your word for it.
Alright.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I'll
just
show
look
you
up-
the data.
Real quick, Chris.
Hold on, but
go ahead.
you know, I just looked this up. The average age of the passenger jets that we fly on that are way more dangerous, you would say, are 14 years. So you're flying on a plane that's 14 years old. It's been up in the air, up and down, to say at least once a day.
No,
if
the
not
question is not
twice a
safety.
day.
I'm not asking about safety. I'm saying people like the new cruise lines because they put new things in them. So they go
Right
on a new
here, right here.
Oh, sure,
experience.
but that's like a building. I mean, it's basically a floating building, so it's very easy to renovate on the inside. You would renovate it the way you would renovate a property. The actual underlying ship could be 14, 15 years old, but they just renovate the inside.
Right.
Different themes. right?
Lifespan
They do
is
different
about
themes and whatnot.
30 years. Most ships have an official lifespan about 30 years.
A long time.
And yeah, and the amount of time it takes for the assets to depreciate to 15% of its original value. Look at that,
Chris,
30
real quick,
years. Like yeah.
what is the margin supposed to be on cruise stocks? 20%, 10%?
If we have to go into the prior years to see what it is, but right now they're all going to be focusing, and maybe not Royal Caribbean because maybe they don't have nearly the amount of liabilities, but it's going to be focused on paying down debt. So you're not going to see a lot of cash flows going into shareholders' pockets via like share buybacks or dividends right now. So let me just look that up real quick. Sorry.
Apparently, there was also a lot of dilution since 20. Well, that was to issue the debt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Let me get to these super chats because we've got a bunch of them, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
99
TJ,
bucks, dude, what are you guys doing? Part of the
DJ
rent
the
cost.
wheel deal. You officially got your
Nice.
rent, buddy. You could have asked me for $0.99.
No,
$0.00, but
He agreed for every week. $100 for the rent.
Oh, thanks, man. Seriously, thanks so much, TJ.
Thank you, TJ. And another one from TJ. We'll see you in Vegas. Vegas in about a month and a half. No, less than a month and a half. It'll be exciting. About 5 weeks.
Yeah.
David says, if they reboot Back to the Future, I could see AMIT being casted as Marty
Totally.
McFly and Carlos as Biff. So why don't you make
I play a
another
good
year?
Biff. I play a good Biff. I would.
I don't know who Biff is, but
Biff was
Oh,
like
God.
kind of like a
He hasn't even seen Back to the Future, people.
I haven't seen Back to the Future, bro.
Wow.
I mean, I've heard about it. I just haven't watched it. Then
Sure.
David says, can we all agree that the movie Back to the Future is awesome? Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me you built a time machine out of DeLorean?
You know what the
Out of
DeLorean
a
is?
DeLorean. What is a DeLorean, by the way?
DeLorean is like an instrument, right?
No.
Right?
It's a
like a-
guitar. Yeah, it's a guitar.
It's like a what's that?
Harmonica.
No, not a
No,
harmonica.
it's the goddamn
Aquarium.
car, dude. It's the car.
Oh, it's a car.
That's the
Okay.
DeLorean
That's
that
funny-
they turned
funny
into
enough,
a time machine.
the DeLorean is the only other car that had a metal exoskeleton. It was built in
Yeah.
the same manner that a Cybertruck is built, where it's just it's not painted, it's just folded metal, and it has like those gull wing doors.
Okay.
There's a couple of them still
Well,
out
now
there.
I know, bro. The word of the day today on the morning stream was egg corn. And egg corn is apparently when you say something the wrong way. So you know how I say, it's called a spigot. I call it a squigget on my channel because I call it the wrong thing. But you get what I'm trying to say. It's an egg corn. It's a phrase that you missay, but you know what you're trying.
I feel like I do that with lyrics to songs all the time.
Exactly.
You ever have that where you're like at a concert with someone and you're singing the lyrics and you're singing them wrong, and your person next to you is like, you think that's what he's been saying the whole time, like for years, you're singing it wrong.
So
Amit,
something weird just
I
happened.
suggest you do like 100, the top 100 movies. You should just watch one every day for like a year.
By the way, they're coming out with a new DeLorean. A DeLorean, like there's actually DeLorean motors. They're actually making an EV that like
That's a car
pays
company?
homage.
And I'm
Oh, shit.
sure.
Yeah.
I remember hearing something about that, but it was mostly
Probably a different
DeLorean
owner.
motor.
I don't think it's the same designer.
It's
in
probably a
Detroit.
different owner.
It's in Michigan. Wow.
Yeah.
How many cars do these guys sell?
They're not going to sell
DeLorean
very many.
Motor
Those were
Company?
always
Well, they went bankrupt back in the day because nobody wanted to buy them.
nobody bought
So we'll
those.
see if the Cybertruck is a success.
Okay, we got 3 topics: Apple iPhone sales, auto worker strikes, Elon charging for Twitter. Which one do you guys want to hit first? And then I'll
Spin
set
the
it up.
wheel.
We should have a
Anybody?
wheel.
Any takers?
Wait, say that again. Which ones?
The auto worker strike, which I think has some implications.
Let's
on
talk about the
inflation.
strike. Let's talk
Right.
about
Yeah,
the
let's
strike,
start with
'cause
that.
That's really that's important news, man.
Okay, so to set it up for everybody, the strike has officially started in select locations. Ohio and Missouri are where some of them are happening for Ford and GM. The main problem is the Ford, GM, CEOs, all that stuff. They brought negotiations to the table. The workers are not coming to the table. They brought 5 more variations of negotiations. The workers are still not coming. So it's not like it's a negotiation where they're going back and forth. There is one side asking, and the other side's like, if you don't even get to this level, we are not coming at all. And so that's where we are right now. Obviously not affecting car supply yet that dramatically. Ford laid off 600 people yesterday. Now, apparently in the United States, if you fire someone on strike, it's against the law. So Ford fired people that weren't on strike. So the people on strike got other people fired, and Ford found a loophole on how to justify why they fired those people. So what are your thoughts on what's going to happen with the strike? Obviously, the elephant in the room is this is massively helping Tesla. Tesla doesn't have a union. Workers picked stock in 2018. Stock went up 20x. What do you think is going to happen? Let's start with Carlos.
Well, there was a. Why don't you share this? Why don't you share this article here? We'll just read a little bit of this, and I actually posted something on X. I have to keep reminding myself. That's a good video that kind of sums up where I think this is going. So Ford Motor Chief Executive Jim Farley said on Thursday that the United Auto Workers Union proposal to hike wages 40%. You have to understand they're asking for a 40% wage increase, and they also want a 4-day work week. So I think they want to work 30. I'm not sure if it's
32 hours. 32 hours.
32
So they,
hours.
okay, so they do want to reduce the number of hours. I thought it was like maybe work 10 hours a day and do your 40 hours in 4 days, which is what was proposed in New York years ago. And so they're basically saying they want to hike the wages by 40%, cut worksheets, and add a new pension benefits that could bankrupt the company. You want us to choose bankruptcy over supporting the workers, blah, 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 blah. Vivek, actually, did you see what Vivek posted about that?
I didn't. I don't. What is Vivek's take on this? I have no
Vivek's take on it was he goes, how long do you think until the major auto companies now ask for more government subsidies and bailouts from the government? And he got a lot of shit for it, but a lot of people also said that's exactly
exactly how it's going to work.
That's what's going to happen, right? So they're going to ask for those. They're going to ask for more subsidies.
You think there's going to be more bailouts for the auto companies?
You think
I
the
don't
auto
wanna
companies,
misquote- I don't
America's
wanna
going to let
misquote.
the auto companies go bankrupt? That's not happening.
So I do want to pull up his exact quote.
They bail them out every 10 years. It's not
Basically, there's some event. Basically there's some event. Every
It's
10
literally
years.
like every decade.
It's like on the agenda.
It's like the airlines. Imagine the airlines go bankrupt.
It's just
Like,
part of the budget.
not
now.
gonna happen.
So here's what he said. He said, prediction, big auto CEOs will soon beg Congress for larger EV subsidies, citing higher costs post the UAW strike as their justification. They'll point to Elon Musk as their boogeyman when really they just need to run their companies more efficiently and compete, evolve or die.
I mean, he's
Interesting take.
let's get to Vitaly. Vitaly, what's your take on it? Then we'll go to Chris.
Well, it's weird. I didn't read everything, but why are 32 hours? I don't understand how they can ask. Is it one of those asks they know they won't get? Like, we want to work a day less. That's a crazy ask, and to get more money. It's one thing to say, hey, we need to take care of our families. We need to work a day less. but we're willing to take less upfront in terms of raises. But they're asking for like everything. Again, give us our raises, give us our more money, give us better insurance, and also we want to work less. That's a weird ask. I don't understand that. It sounds like
especially as the company's in the middle of a transition where they need to spend a bunch of money and cannibalize their ice sales to make the transition.
It sounds like you throw it in because like you're not going to get it. That's what it sounds like. To sort of, okay, we'll take this off the table. We're back to 40 hours a week, but it's a crazy ask in my opinion.
Well, I mean, it just goes to show. Look, I'm part of a union, and I think there's a benefit to having workers have a union, but there is a mentality that can seep in to those people where it's a certain level of complacency and a certain level of like our employers work for us, right? Or we are the companies, right? And so what can happen is people forget that like you work for these companies and you still need to come in and do your job every day and help the company grow. I think the big problem is that they don't participate in profit sharing the way that say a company, say workers that have stock options in the company can.
It's because the car stocks don't move. Right.
Well, the car stocks don't move.
They might. We don't actually know that. We don't know if they do, but it doesn't matter. Ford hasn't moved in a decade. So what are you participating in?
As long as you get, if you get a rich dividend and you have a pension, you should be able to be fine. There's a lot of people that would be able to retire. I mean, Sandy Monroe has a huge portion of his retirement in Ford. It's Ford stock. It's Ford stock. So there is a path
pension. It might be different. Maybe he has a pension. That's a different pension. Yeah.
So there is a path to a nice, honorable retirement working at some of these companies, especially when you put your tenure in, and the health benefits are great. But I just think, like you said, I think Tesla's the elephant in the room. I think they're seeing Tesla fundamentally operates differently because those employees are incentivized in a different way, right? They're incentivized with the carrot versus the stick. And so I don't think this is going to be good. And I've been saying this forever, for the people that think Tesla's overvalued, continue to say it's overvalued, like they're still shorting the stock. What's his name? Chanos, still shorting the stock. What happens as these companies start to go bankrupt? They already couldn't hit their numbers in terms of their sales. So this idea that the competition is coming is a big talking point in terms of Tesla stock not performing, or Tesla as a company not performing. What happens as these companies don't hit their numbers, and what happens to the stock as these companies go out of business? You're starting to see the business model itself collapse.
So I put up an article. I couldn't find it, but I put it up on Twitter, and it's interesting because as soon as the union workers striked, Ford and GM both fired the people who I think are not in the union. So I think it was like 2,000 workers for GM or so, and 600 or so for Ford, which is like, it's sort of crazy. So they're like, all right, everybody go home.
No. Let me explain what the rationale behind that was. Basically, the UAW, when they strike, they have a lot of people as they strike, and they have a strike fund set up, right? So basically the workers can get paid a little bit of money by the union so that this way they can subside while the strike is ongoing. Every
3 months of that fund left, by the way.
Yeah. Every union has a strike fund. They keep that money on the side just in case shit happens. Now, the thing is with the union this time, they were very strategic. And what they did was they only struck at sites that would end up pausing all the other factories that were there, because not everything is made in one factory. So basically, if you worked in one of the factories that had a critical component that you required in order to build the rest of the car, if you were to strike there, it would have more of an impact to the other sites, right? The other sites, the employees weren't striking. They're saying, hey, listen, I came to work, you got to pay me. So Ford and GM and everyone else is like, wait a second, we see your shit, we see what you're doing. The ones that are striking are getting paid. The ones that are not striking, y'all are just going to think that you're going to come to work and get paid to just sit around and do nothing. We're going to call your bluff. And so Ford ended up firing them and just say, you know what? There's no work. We're laying you off. That's it. So this is the kind of back and forth that's happening right now between the two. There's two main problems with this. And I kind of agree with Vivek. I think this is the union knowing that they have all the power in this whole thing. Number one, the Democrats are in charge via the presidency, right? This is a loyalty test during an election cycle. If a single Democrat comes out right now and says, no, I don't think that the union workers are correct for asking for too much, every single one of them will get primaried out right away. And basically it's like, oh, you're siding with the rich. So number one, this is a loyalty test for Democrats to see which Democrats are actually going to come out and side with the union. That's number one. Number two, in this scenario that let's say these companies, these auto worker, these companies like GM and Ford, they go down in stock value, and let's say they go bankrupt. The union can come in and do exactly what they did in 2009 and say, oh, we'll renegotiate, but give us a piece of the company. We want 25%, 50% ownership over the company. Because in bankruptcy, that's what happens. You as a creditor can ask for, in lieu of payment, ask for equity. And so they can ask for equity. So even if, let's say, Ford were to go bankrupt right now or declare bankruptcy, or GM declares bankruptcy, the union would just come in and say, no, we're going to take a piece of the company as a prize for doing this. So all the power right now is actually in the hands of the unions. So that is the negotiating tactics that the union is using, saying, look, either you're going to pay us way more than you're paying us right now, or we're going to bankrupt you and take a piece of your company, in which case the equity holders are going to get screwed over,
So
which is not good for
But I think that
who caves first, I guess is the question.
Well, that's the question, right? That's the answer that we're all looking for. Who caves first? The union right now has all the power and the control right now over the negotiation. That's why they're so bold, and they can just come out and say, hey, listen, do your worst. They're not in a right to work state. They're in a union state. You can't even fire these people. You can't get rid of the union. You can't just say, you know what? I'm shifting all my production to Mexico tomorrow. Because guess what's going to happen if you do that? The Democrats are going to come and tariff the shit out of you. So,
and to your point, they also do have political power, because they do donate a tremendous amount of money to elections.
That's true.
I mean, I think Biden got was it 2 million or something?
Let's see.
And it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but if you look at the overall history, and they predominantly donate to Democrats, so they do have some leverage in that sense. It's not an insurmountable amount of money.
Most unions give money to Democrats.
But the flip side of this, if you look at what happened when the Starbucks and when those retail workers went on strike, the Starbucks, the McDonald's employees, what did the companies end up doing? They eventually ended up making a deal, but then they started automating a lot of it. I think that's the secret play here, is that a lot of these jobs probably won't come back, because these companies will look to find ways of automating what was normally done by an employee. They'd rather just say, look, if it costs them a little bit more money up front to eliminate that employee, I think that's what they're going to do. Long term, this is going to sell a lot of Tesla bots, because that's exactly what they're being built for, is to work in the factories and do. You're not going to be able to replace all the workers, but you're going to be able to severely, for $25,000 or $30,000, a one-time charge, and maybe a monthly subscription fee to like the FSD that runs these robots. You're going to be able to have skilled labor that does most of the work, or a good portion of the work that some of these workers do. And that's what's going to happen. Eventually, I think a lot of these jobs are going to be automated away.
And by the way, there is one other component to this. To say the unions are wrong for striking is one thing, but when you look at the CEO compensation, that's accelerated a lot for GM Ford, even though it's mostly done in shares. You look at Jim Farley's pay; it's $21 million a year. What's her name? Mary. They called out Mary.
Yeah, they called out Mary.
29
million. She makes something like $2.5 million a month, whatever it is. She makes like $2.5 million a month.
So the question, so these CEOs have given these guys plenty of publicity ammunition against these CEOs. Say, look at what you're paying yourself. Look at the raise you motherfuckers gave yourselves. So now, what is Mary Barra going to say? Can she come out and say, you know what? You guys are absolutely right. Fuck this. I'm taking a $30 million pay cut. I'll only take $1 million a year. Does she have the balls to come out and say that?
Well, if she did that, that might save the company in terms of
what the CEO. Wasn't it the CEO of Toyota that did that, or was it? It was either the no. I think it was the CEO of Nintendo, either Nintendo or Toyota, one of those companies, a Japanese company. When the company wasn't doing well, he said, "I'm no longer going to take a salary until we turn the company around." Yeah. And it was. I mean, the guy said for life, but
that's real leadership. That's real
right.
Leadership.
It's real leadership.
They're not going to do that shit.
Look at what Musk did. Look at what Musk did. Musk said, "Don't fucking pay me anything until I get you guys to profitability." So all his workers rallied behind that. The guy was fucking sleeping at the factory, for God's sakes.
I think he needed to get what, 400 billion market cap for his options to trigger.
600 billion.
They had really high metrics.
It was a high threshold.
You had to hit them all. It was like vehicle sales, revenue, stock price. Like, it was a lot of metrics that needed to be hit.
If anyone says Elon didn't deserve that money, he deserved that money, bro. He did the impossible.
Well, imagine you're at like 10 billion market cap, and he's like, you know what? these are the milestones. If I get to 600 billion, you guys give me like 250 billion dollars, all right? And they're like, sure, Elon,
They're
whatever
like,
you
sure,
want.
because we've got 600 billion.
Well,
You know
they're
what I
like, whatever
mean?
you want. This is never going to happen.
Right.
And
He's like, oh, how about a
Can you
trillion?
bring up Love Deep Singh's comment at 434? Because this is actually important context. It says, even though the ask is a 40% hike, they haven't had a raise in 4 years. The new contract length is 4 years. So this huge ask amortized over 8 years is around 4 to 5% annually. And I think that's because the talking point is they want a 40% raise. And
that's a good point.
Part of what they're saying is that I think, and part of in that is a certain percent increase for what they're calling a cost of living increase, which is now trying to basically push the cost of the inflation back onto the companies and saying, look, things are costing more now.
so this sounds reasonable, by the way. The
if you
32
look at it
hours
that way,
doesn't, but that sounds reasonable.
it's reasonable.
Yeah.
They haven't had a raise.
This is what UPS did. UPS annualized 5% pay raise over their new 5-year contract. Plus, they haven't gotten a raise from 2019. So over 8 years, it's 4 to 5%. People are like, oh, UPS people are making 170 grand. Yeah, over 8 years, that's a big raise.
Mm-hmm.
The
A
other
reasonable
thing
raise.
is, can you share my screen real quick? The other thing is, these companies are making money. They're doing well in terms of money. Like last quarter, GM, this is GM's financial. They generated almost 2.57 billion in profit.
Yeah, but look at that on a
income.
trailing 12 months, though. Look at that on a trailing 12 months, though.
No, it's there. It's almost like $12 billion. They almost made about.
That's
making about the
profits.
same?
That's not revenue.
Yeah.
That's profits.
That's net income. So the union is striking, saying, "Hey, listen, pay up because you're making money. It's not like you're not making money." So,
So
The problem is, look, they're making money on the old legacy, and everybody knows they're moving to EVs, which they're not going to be making as much money on. So this is also the issue. Then unions don't care about that.
They're not making any money. I mean, they're not. Look, and GM just got rid of the Bolt.
Not yet.
But
that's
the
right.
amount of volume that they need to move in order to start making money, they weren't even really making money on the Bolt, and that was their best-selling vehicle.
But
and
Carlos,
they just discontinued it. The
but
Hummer, they're
Carlos-
selling 30 of those a year. The Lyric is
Carlos-
300 and something $1,000. It's like, where are
Carlos,
they making money on these vehicles?
That's the point that everyone is trying to make. How did Elon figure out how to make money on electric cars? These motherfuckers need to figure out how to make electric car money and at the same time pay their workers. Like, it's out. The opportunity is there. It's just they have to figure out how to do it. As good management, it's your job to figure out how to be profitable with the asks of your employees. Okay, that's how it is. I mean,
the issue or the challenge for them is particularly difficult for them is because they have all of the legacy baggage and costs associated with converting a company. In other words, it's a lot easier to buy a factory clean and from scratch outfit it to build EVs than it is to take a factory that's made to build one thing and change it over to another. They have a lot of their money in machines and workflows that just aren't going to work anymore, right? And so that's part of the issue for those guys. It's like it's not as easy for them to switch over as it was to have a new startup.
I mean,
that's why companies like Rivian. That's why companies like Rivian that are just EV startups are doing better than the EV divisions of a lot of these companies.
I mean, it's easy for them to pay themselves $21 million a year, $30 million a year. Why are you getting that much money if you can't figure out the fucking business? Elon,
or if you can't transition to EVs, yeah.
That's right.
Because they're not really all in. This is the thing. They're not really all in. I mean, a lot of these companies
maybe it's time to go all in for these guys now.
But at the point that they're at right now, if they did go all in and say, we're not going to make ICE vehicles anymore, we're not making any internal combustion engine vehicles, then basically the money that's coming in to fund the transition is gone. And to Vivek's point, that's where they're going to ask the government to step in for much larger subsidies. And basically the taxpayers are going to offset these costs. But then look, whether you see it in the sticker shock of the vehicle or in higher taxes, we're still paying for it. Time to get in there. That's going to be a meme for a couple months.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that the government should be bailing these companies out. I think the companies should. Huh?
You said
what? Right, Chris, finish your point, then we'll play this.
No, I don't think that the federal government should be bailing out a private company, regardless of how important they are to the general economy.
But this was the argument during the pandemic on airlines. I mean,
but that was a different thing, because that was something that was like an act of God that you really couldn't control. This is all business at this point. If GM, Ford, Chrysler can't figure out how to make the business model work, they need to just die, and Tesla can just take over the entire fucking auto industry completely. Who gives a shit? You know,
Well,
the point is,
I think America would give a shit. First of all, I think a lot of people would
no,
give
no,
a shit.
I think that
They're-
other
the union
companies
workers
could,
are people too.
no,
But
but
I'll
I'm
tell you
saying
right now,
other
if they
people-
didn't
yeah.
donate, you have to ask yourself, would they give a shit if they did not donate the money that they do to the elections? It
Nope.
really comes down. It really comes down
You
to
think
that.
Biden cares about the union workers, bro?
Well,
No,
he has to
there's
pretend
no
he
way
does.
cares about.
But he has to pretend that he does.
He has to
because
pretend he
gets-
cares. Bro, Biden's a
gets
multimillionaire. You think Bernie Sanders, who made $5 million last year, cares about the union workers? No fucking way, bro.
Well, let's see what Mary Barra says. I'm curious. I actually did not hear this before.
Oh, this is You'll see. Well, get ready for a tap dance. This is a better show than you saw on the cruise, Chris.
Let's hear this.
Demanding, asking for a 40% wage increase over 4 years. They're asking for that in part because they say CEOs like yourself, leading the big three, are making those kind of pay increases over the course of the last 4 years. You've seen a 34% pay increase in your salary. You make almost $30 million. Why should your workers not get the same type of pay increases that you're getting leading the company?
Well, if you look at compensation, my compensation, 92% of it is based on performance of the company. I think one of the strong aspects of the way our compensation for our represented employees is designed is not only are we putting a 20% increase on the table, we have profit sharing. So when the company does well, everyone does well. And for the last several years, that's resulted in record profit sharing for our represented employees. And I think you have to look at the whole compensation package, not only 20% increase in gross wage, but also the profit sharing aspect of it, world-class healthcare, and there's several other features. So we think we have a very competitive offer on the table, and that's why we want to get back there and get this done.
But if you're getting a 34% pay increase over 4 years and you're offering 20% to employees right now, do you think that's fair?
Well, I think when you look at the overall structure and the fact that 92% is based on performance, and you look at what we've been doing of sharing in the profitability when the company does well, I think we've got a very compelling offer on the table, and that's the focus I have right now.
You heard no answer there.
I heard a lot of words. There's a lot.
She said,
of
"I
words.
get paid in stock." I mean, that was her.
She's
argument.
saying 92% of my compensation is in stock. But again, it's very different. This is what the difference when you have an operator coming in. Like, we've looked at the history of the CEOs of these companies. They do 4, 5, 6 years. They come in, do what they got to do, keep the train running, make their money, and then they leave. It's very different when you have an owner, original founder who's still operating the company, and who their compensation is tied to the performance of the company. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some middle ground here, right? There is definitely some middle ground here where they can still have a union to have the protections of a union, but have the benefits of what the Tesla employees have with stock options. I mean, that's really what they need to do. They need to incentivize the people to work their ass off so that the stock price can go up based on valuation metrics because they're doing well, and then have those employees actually seeing the fruits of their labor come back to them on the bottom line. That's honestly what they need to do. If they can give her stock options, they should be able to give the employees stock options in a way that it is appealing to them.
Well, she's saying the employees do have some sort of compensation part of it. But the question she didn't answer was, why do you get like 34% and they get 20%? Shouldn't you sort of make it?
Yeah,
least
there's no argument. She
somewhat
can't be like,
equal?
they have healthcare. She's got healthcare.
It's a total compensation package that I get more of. That's what she basically.
Well,
has to say.
look, but to be fair, I don't necessarily think that it scales, that it should be scaled up evenly. Like,
Yeah,
she
of
is
course.
the CEO of the company. Basically, she's also on the hook to take all of the responsibility if things fail. So I think there's a premium that you can attach to that. in terms
That's
of
the
her compensation.
problem. She would still get paid tens of millions even if it fails. She's not actually fully tied to that compensation, I bet. So that's the problem. That if she was genuine and she was really tied, like Elon is tied to his compensation. So even the people who hate Elon saying, hey, at least he's earned that money. Okay. But I don't know if Mary Barr is that same way. I don't give her the benefit of the doubt.
This is interesting. Do you think if they pay union workers more, Tesla will unionize and they will try to get?
I was literally just going to answer that in the chat. No, I don't think so, because I think
No. I actually agree. I think this is bad for Tesla.
No.
Bad.
Oh, okay. So we
Yeah.
got a contrarian take. Let's go with Chris's, then Carlos's response. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so I think this is a bad thing, because what's going to happen now is that if let's say the negotiation is done, let's say the auto workers get what they want, that means that you're going to have Tesla employees asking for similar demands. If anything, even if they ask for half of that, it's bad for Tesla because now Tesla has to go out of its pocket and provide more, right? Anytime you see an industry pay scale jump, the people who are not already meeting that pay scale, they're going to ask for a similar amount, if not more.
But why would
just
they
to
do that if they
maintain
have
that.
Tesla stock and this Tesla stock's doing way better than Ford?
Well, you have to compare their basic package to the
Yeah.
basic package. Like if Ford employees are underpaid compared to what Tesla employees are paid, and they're getting a 40% increase, which as we see is really 4 to 5% over the year, and they're still making about the same or a little bit less or even a little bit more than what Tesla employees are getting paid. It's not going to be it's not going to be an issue. It's not going to put pressure on the Tesla
And
employees.
stock options.
Well,
are
I do want to
double-
point about
yeah.
the stock. Yeah, one thing about stock. So let's say there's a lot more employees for the new factories joining now at this stock price at 250, and then we hang here for the next 2 years. Who knows, right?
Mhm.
So are those people getting compensated with higher stock prices? Then it doesn't really matter, right?
Mhm.
So
What do you mean? Well, but the options are usually at a lower price than what the
no,
stock
the
is
people
currently
coming in
trading.
now will have to have,
Yeah.
maybe there's a discount, maybe there's a
slight-
10,
yeah, a slight
20%, but
discount.
still,
Yeah.
it's not like they're getting it for $5 what Elon bought it for. It's not happening. So now they're
Yeah.
paying maybe 200 instead of 250.
That's a good point.
But
This
that-
is the
but
problem.
that's
This is the
still-
problem that
David, but that's still better. I mean, hold on, that's still better. You can't
No, no, no.
possibly expect to have you can't possibly expect to have stock options valued at 4 or 5 years before you started working at that company. That's the point of tenure.
No, but that doesn't matter. The point is you're getting
No,
it at a
you're missing-
premium
yeah,
valuation.
you're missing
right
the
now.
point,
It doesn't
though.
matter when you
Yeah.
join or not.
And then it stays at the same price or goes lower, and they're still gonna have
Yeah.
to pay $200. Even if at the 150, they got 200. They're underwater on their stock options. So
Yeah.
it depends when they have to exercise those options that it could fall underwater, and then they're screwed. So the people coming in now are not flush with cash. It's the people who were there 5 years ago that are flush with cash.
But every
Yeah.
year, the idea of that would be if the company continues to perform and they continue to hit their numbers, if they continue to grow 50%. Look, they just made their 5 millionth vehicle. And
Yeah,
if
but
you
see,
look
no one knows that, Carlos. That's the problem.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
worry,
No, but
right?
And you
people,
can't-
the people there, the people working there know they just made their 5 million.
Carlos, you
and they're
can't
on
buy
track to
groceries
make
with
another
stock
million
options.
in 3
You
and a
can't
half
buy
months.
groceries with stock options. You can't be
No,
like, well,
you
listen,
can't.
man,
You
you
can-
know.
I'm not saying you can buy groceries with stock options, but what I'm saying is in terms of an overall,
No, but Carlos,
compensation.
that 250
First
has
of all,
to
you
go to-
can, by the way, I take money out of the brokerage against those options, and I go buy some fucking groceries.
Like if you get your stock at 250 or 210, it has to go to 300, like it has to really grow, right? What
And
if
there's
the fucking
taxes on that, by
Fed
the
goes
way.
to 6% interest rates, right? You don't never know with stocks what could happen.
But if you're in a
when are
company-
you going to change from 4K to 1080p? This is why your camera keeps dying. I'm going to publicly
I've been
call
trying to tell you
out.
for years. That's not why my camera dies. The internal heating is low on the camera. It has nothing
Yes,
to do-
because you're recording in 4K. Can you please explain to him?
It could be. You could be right, but it doesn't matter. Why don't you just get a good camera?
It's not a good camera. It's a DSLR. What the fuck are you talking about?
Amit, if you
dies sometimes.
if you record in 4K, it does not come across the stream in 4K. It's
This looks pretty good. What the audio? I think people like this 4K.
downgraded to 1080p no
No,
matter.
I know you're right.
So if you
Can you just model me,
4K,
Kevin? Just model
yeah.
what he's using. Ask
No,
him.
I actually am
text
trying
him.
to figure out because his shit comes into 4K even with using StreamYard. I thought it was a StreamYard thing.
Yeah, ask him what he's using. Go ahead.
I don't know.
Text him.
Well, I've never seen a setting for that. No, the settings are you set the camera sets the resolution, but then StreamYard
No,
is
that's
going to
what Chris is
compress
saying.
it to
But
whatever it needs to.
but
There's a
guys,
setting.
can you explain to him if he records in 4K, that's going to overheat the camera versus
Yes,
if you
there's
record
a
in
1080p
1080p
setting,
Yeah.
if there's a 1080p setting, yes, it'll definitely not overheat the camera if he does that. I don't know what
Yeah.
his camera is though, so I haven't looked.
It's a Sony A6400, so there is a 1080p setting. There is one.
So
Okay, go ahead,
set it
Carlos.
to 1080p. I'm telling you, the quality of drop is not going to be even like noticeable, dude.
No one's
Yeah.
gonna know.
The stream itself is, I think, 1080, and then you're also 1/4 of that, so you're probably downscaling yourself all the way to 540p.
Okay, let's end it off on that. So, Carlos, what's the argument for why if 200 has to go to 300 until I get the alpha?
What I'm saying is no employee that's coming into the company right now can reasonably expect to get stock options at a lower valuation or at a valuation that was 5 years before they started working there. That also eliminates the incentive for the workers that were already there. That's the reason why you stay at a company, so that you can build that tenure and you can build that retirement plan, right? And so if you start working for a company and you believe that it's still in its heavy growth phase, then even if it's say you're buying the stock at $200, right? If that's what your stock options are and you have to exercise them at $200, you're not expecting to sell them anytime soon. you're starting at that company thinking you're going to be there and help the company grow from $200 to $300, $400, $500, $600 a share. That's the idea of it. Because if you're only going to be there a year or two, then just buy the stock yourself, right? Why also work at the company? And so, no, I don't agree with this argument that
I think the way to solve this is two ways. Number one, let the unions have a guaranteed board seat on management decisions. This is how they do it in Germany, right? Where basically the workers are part of the factory at the local level, where basically decisions for that factory, whether it be hiring, firing, includes the unions in that, so that this way the members, the biggest problem that I've seen, I've been part of a union before. Okay. There's good parts of the union and there's bad parts. Of the union.
there's some really good parts of being in the union.
The good parts of the union. And I'll give you an example. I was working at my last job. I was part of a union. It's one of the best unions that's out there. They got an amazing raise. I wish I was still part of the union right now. New boss comes in, new guy, new director comes in, and this guy is like, has it in for me. He just comes in and is like, you know what? I want to bring my own guy in. I was in middle management at the time. So what does he do? He's like, he makes my life a living hell. He basically will be like, oh, I told you to do this. And I'm like, you never even told me. Like, what are you talking about? And so one time he tried to write me up for something. And I said, look, I don't know where you came from, but this is I'm part of a union. You're going to have to, get the union involved here. So me and him are sitting there with my union rep. My union rep is there. He's there. And he's like, oh, KRIS didn't do this. When I asked him to, I was like, can you provide the communication? Did you call him? Did you text him? Did you email him? Well, no, I just said it in passing and he didn't do it. And he's like, so you're basically trying to fire this gentleman who's been here for 5 years, who has exemplary reports from his last 5 years of annual reviews, because he didn't do the one thing that you said in passing. And that's why you're trying to fire him. And HR looked at the guy, like the director at the time, and he just said, let's have this discussion with these guys not here. And literally the guy got reprimanded because they saw what the hell he was trying to do.
Yeah,
he's trying to basically bring his own guy in, right?
Wow.
Now, of course, if the union wasn't there and this guy wanted to just fire me, they could have just said, you know what, you're an at-will employee. Bye. I don't need you. I can bring my own guy in. Union saved my day saved my job that day. So love the union for that. But I'll tell you the bad side of the union. There was another union guy that was working at my job. This guy was working at the front desk of our department. He was having some tragedies at home, whatever. He was drunk, like fucking drunk and pissed drunk, came to work and basically, I don't want to say assaulted a patient, but basically had an interaction with a patient, which is immediate grounds for fucking termination, right? You would think. Nope. The union said, look, he's having a tough time, and they negotiated. He had to go to like anger management classes, and then he had to do like a 5-step program for like alcoholicness.
It sounds like the teachers union.
And basically, the guy still was in our hospital, but instead of being in our department, they just shifted him to another department. And so, what do you think happens a year from that? Punches another patient.
Wow,
that's crazy, right? This is the kind of stuff that happens sometimes with the union, where they protect bad members too.
Did he get a raise?
No. Okay.
That's because that person brings them money, right?
Yeah.
So
You know what? I like your initiative.
No. Here's the
really
part.
punching it out of the park, fella.
Here's the other part that unions are terrible at. Me right now, even if I perform at the highest level, my pay is going to stay the same as someone who does the bare minimum. So right now, there's a lot of people on my team. They don't pull their weight, and they get paid the same amount that I do. And even when they get raises, they don't get raises based on their performance. They get raises that are negotiated by the union. So right now, those Ford workers and GM workers, some of them are probably operating at the highest level and doing a shit ton of work. And then there are some that are just like, yeah, today's going to be one of those days, and both of them are getting raises.
But I'll tell you what, you don't need a union to have that. I mean, that's pretty much any place anybody works.
Yeah, big companies.
At any big company, there's always going to be some floaters, and there's like, there's 20% of the team that does the actual work, right? They really bust ass. They're like the they're there to work. And then some of the
Yeah.
other people float to varying degrees. But I don't think that that's necessarily just a thing that's for union workers.
It's just really hard
right.
to fire a union person. It's just really fucking
It's
hard.
really hard, but that's
Amit,
good.
Before you
That's
ended,
good.
you want to
Yeah.
just give Heinze a shout out? I think that's the last super chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he said, I just can't see people asking for 32 hours work with 40 hours pay. The government can't keep bailing people out. Yeah, for the inflation point, if the used
No, no,
car market goes up,
So let me explain this 32 hours thing. The reason for that, the reason for that is because like right now, I'm a salaried employee. Right now I'm getting paid my fixed amount. But let's say I work extra.
Are you
right?
working
I don't
right
get,
now?
Huh? No.
Are you
I
working
don't
right
get
now?
paid
You on a
any.
job?
I don't get paid any extra right now. But at my old job, when I was at the union, right, my actual my weekly check, if you look at it on a per hourly basis, was what I was paid. But my actual thing was only 35 hours a week. The reason why is because anything above 35 was overtime, baby. So right now
Yeah.
they're saying, 4 days a week. No one is going to be working 4 days a week. All of them are going to be working fucking at least 5-6
Yep.
days a week
Yep.
and making that
OT.
overtime money. You look at New York City cops, bro, their base pay is 100K. Their overtime pay is about another 150,000.
wait, a New York
You
City
know.
cop makes $100,000?
Oh,
More than
fuck
that.
yeah.
With a
Easy.
signing bonus now.
Easy.
Wait, what? I
Easy.
thought they make 50 grand. Like that's an annual.
I mean, maybe that's the guy who started day one, but not if you've been there for a number of
Cops
years.
make
It scales up
100
quickly.
grand?
It scales up because
Yeah.
they want to incentivize you to stay there for a long time because there's a certain cost involved with training a police officer. You know what I mean? And so they want to be able to recoup that cost.
Bro.
over
There's a lot of
certain
OT for cops.
Oh, a
Definitely.
lot of
So,
OT.
one
And
of
for
our-
sanitation and for all those city workers.
At my old position,
And then I got a jet, guys.
the way
same.
that
All right,
the
Carlos,
union,
we got to go. We'll talk to you
yeah.
later.
Yeah, the
Bye.
way that the union had negotiated pensions for some of the
I'm gonna go
staff was
too.
that
See you later. Bye.
whatever your last 5 years of pay was, your average, they take that and they pay you based on that as a proxy for your pension. So like, and they pay you half of that. So basically, let's say if you made $100,000 the last 5 years average, they're going to pay you $50,000 a year for your pension, right? Which is good. So what a lot of people did was, and this is what the old timers would do, if you were nearing retirement, all the overtime would get pumped to you. So you would make $200,000-$300,000. So when you were retired, you were getting $150,000 fucking pension. And I know that sounds crazy, but it is actually normal. Let me show you the data actually.
I thought cops are government workers and they don't get. I didn't think cops get paid that
man.
much. I thought
Hold
it's like
on,
teachers,
hold
bro.
on.
I thought it's like teachers. Wow.
Give me 1
100
second.
grand?
See through.
Well, obviously, New York also is different. I mean, New York's a whole different world versus like Missouri.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no,
damn,
a lot of them they make a lot of money on overtime. Like I know a guy I was serving with in the army, and basically he was a New York City cop. So one of the things that they were able to do at the time was he was actually able to get paid to be the cop, and he got paid while he was in deployment at the same time and double dip. Eventually they caught on to this shit somehow, and they stopped it. But there's a lot of things, like if you know what you're doing, like in a public sector job, you can really rake it in. Like I've made during COVID, my base pay was like, you know what? I don't want to discuss the numbers, but I made 50% of my base pay in overtime during COVID because literally there was just no one there. And I was literally busting my ass the entire time. So I was getting paid a fuck ton of money. I made really, really good.
And you were an
money those
essential
first
worker
years.
to an extent. I mean, they needed
Yeah,
people like
I
that.
was, so yeah. They recently nerfed New York City cop pensions. I'm sure they did. Yeah.
All right. That's it for us. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. Thank you all for being here. And yeah, we'll see how this auto worker strike ends up turning out over the next couple of months. See you, everybody. Thank you for joining. See you tomorrow. Good night.
Later.